Hi everyone, welcome to Miss Adams Teaches Macbeth, Act 2, Scene 1. So starting with a little plot summary, the scene opens with our friend Banquo and he's walking with his son, Fleance, just talking about the evening. There's a slight little bit of tension in the air. We learn that Banquo's not been sleeping very well and he's feeling quite troubled. Macbeth enters the scene and the two of them have a little bit of a conversation about kind of friendship and loyalty, which is fairly interesting considering what Macbeth is about to go and do. And then Banquo leaves Macbeth to it, exiting the scene with his son. Now, this is one of the most famous scenes probably in the play. This is the moment where Macbeth hallucinates or sees in front of him this dagger. The famous line is, "This is the dagger I see before me." And during this soliloquy, he's almost sort of propelled forward. It's not like the previous soliloquy where he was debating whether or not he should commit the crime. This is more of almost like a justification. This is a motivational kind of soliloquy, spurring him on to do the murder. And right at the end of the scene, there is no doubt that he is about to go and commit this horrific act of regicide. So what we're going to do is we'll have a little look at the opening section with Banquo, and then we'll work our way through Macbeth's famous soliloquy. Okay, so here are some of the lines that Banquo delivers at the beginning of this scene. One of them that's so important is this comment that he makes to his son about the time of night it is. So he says, "There's husbandry in heaven, their candles are all out." So we've got this personification of heaven here being like a housewife and being economical with their stars. Really what that means is heaven has decided to keep the stars away. There are no stars in the sky, i.e. it's a really kind of dark night. Now that's so important because we know that Macbeth in Act 1 Scene 4 pleaded the stars to hide their fires so that no one would be able to see his thoughts and his feelings and his actions. And that seems to be exactly what has happened here. The stars have hidden their fires and Macbeth is able to carry out this dreadful dark deed. Now in this section here, Banquo is talking about how he feels. He says, "A heavy summons lies like lead upon me, and yet I would not sleep." So there's this metaphor, and we've got a simile actually there about lying like lead. But this metaphor here suggests that he is so deeply troubled that there's almost like this feeling of dread. And then he calls to the merciful powers, "Restrain me in the cursed thoughts that nature gives way to in repose." Repose means sleep. So he's like, stop me from having these awful thoughts, the cursed thoughts. That means nightmares. So despite the fact that he is so troubled, he doesn't want to sleep, because when he sleeps, he dreams. And when he dreams, they're cursed dreams, they're nightmares. So already Banquo, even if he doesn't want to admit it, is starting to feel worried about the situation that they are in. Now, Macbeth comes along, they have a nice little chinwag. And this little metaphor is very important, because it's almost like Macbeth is sort of testing the waters a little bit with Banquo, because he says, "If you shall cleave to my consent, when 'tis, it shall make honour for you." So this is about whether or not Banquo will do what Macbeth wishes. So if you cleave to my consent, if you mould yourself to what I want, then in the future it will be good for you, it will make honour for you. But Banquo's not having it. Banquo says, "Yeah, fine, but as long as I keep my bosom franchised and allegiance clear." So he's saying that I will be loyal to the king. I will not do anything that gets in the way of that loyalty. I have to keep my heart clear. So again, this little bit of tension, because Banquo is making it clear, kindly, that Macbeth is not the one he owes allegiance to. It's Duncan. And then off he trots, leaving Macbeth to have his final thoughts. We're in soliloquy again, so form, comment, soliloquy, about what he's about to do. So this is this incredible moment where he sees this dagger. Is this a dagger which I see before me, the handle towards my hand? So note the way that he is addressing the dagger directly when he says, "Come, let me clutch thee." So it's a form of personification in itself, the way that he talks to the dagger as if it's real and as if it's motivating. The fact that the handle is towards my hand suggests that it's pointing the way to Duncan and the murder. He says, "Art thou not fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight?" So that tells us that he's sort of trying to touch it. He's like, I can see it, but can I touch it? Can I put my hands on it? But I think the fact that he says fatal vision is so important, because that adjective fatal, you can read that as deathly vision, i.e. it is of death because it is a knife, you know, it's a weapon. But it might also make you think about things to do with fate. So, like, is this a vision that is demonstrating that it is fate for him to carry out this action? Could be either or. Macbeth is working his way through all of the options that it might be, what he might be seeing. So he's like, are you a dagger of the mind, a false creation, so something that isn't real, proceeding from the heat oppressed brain? So he's wondering if it's to do with sickness, like if it's his mind that has done this because he's feverish, which suggests that he is aware that he's not in a great state, he's not in a good way. And then he continues to think about, well, what's in front of him? I see thee yet, in form as palpable as this which now I draw. Now, this is interesting because he's obviously drawn out his own dagger and he's comparing them. So it looks exactly the same. It looks as if I could just touch it like I can touch my own, but obviously he can't actually physically because this is hallucination. Right, so we've got a little bit of personification here. Thou marshallest me, the way I was going. Marshal is in guiding. So note the way that he's almost justifying his behaviours here. He's like, oh, well, you're pointing me in that way, that you know, this is what I was meant to be doing. He continues to think about whether or not the dagger is real. And he wonders about his sight. He says, mine eyes are made the fools of the other senses, or else worth all the rest. So he's basically saying that either my eyes are deceiving me, either my eyes are getting it wrong, or they're actually getting it right and they're better than all of the other senses. So they're more powerful. So the fact that I can't touch the knife is because my feeling of touch is not as strong as my sense of sight, allowing me to envision it. The hallucination changes ever so slightly. I see thee still, but on thy blade and dudgeon gouts of blood, which was not so before. So again, now the dagger has got blood all over it. So there's a kind of sense of inevitability being presented to us here. There's already blood on the knife. The deed is pretty much done. Okay, and although he realizes that there is no such thing, he recognizes that it's the bloody business which informs us to mine eyes. Note that plosive alliteration there and the repeated B sounds. And he's basically, it's sort of euphemistic because business is a much nicer way of saying attempted murder or, you know, about to murder. So it kind of distances himself from it. Okay, last part of the soliloquy. We've got a little bit of a shift here, okay. Check out the dark and sinister tone, I say. Yes, indeed. Now over the one half world, nature seems dead. So even the kind of the natural world is dead. I mean, it's meant to be a metaphor for sleep here. And that's why we have wicked dreams. Okay, so again, it's nightmares in parallel with what Banquo was saying. Wicked dreams abuse the curtained sleep. Oh, I'm so sorry for sneezing. Witchcraft celebrates pale Hecate's offerings, and withered murder, alarmed by a sentinel the wolf, whose howls his watch, thus with his stealthy pace, with Tarquin's ravishing strides towards his design, moves like a ghost. Gosh, there's a lot in there. He's listing all of these kind of supernatural elements, all of these supernatural occurrences happening. So wicked dreams are abusing sleep, the curtained sleep, nice metaphor. witchcraft is celebrating. Hecate is the goddess of witches, witchcraft, and you've also got withered murder. So we're listing all of these kind of dark and sinister ideas. Now, murder is personified here. Murder is personified as a man who has a kind of a watch, a guard, and that guard is a wolf. So again, very, very supernatural. And this murder, personified murder, is then compared to Tarquin. Now, this is a really horrible bit of allusion here, because Tarquin was a tyrannical king in Rome, and Shakespeare actually wrote an epic poem about not just him, but his rape of this beautiful woman, and it basically created his downfall. So when the strides of Tarquin are pre-modified with this adjective ravishing, it's really horrible, because it's basically saying that murder is moving with the same determination that Tarquin did as he was going to assault this woman. So I mean, the imagery here is so dark, it's so evil, it's so violent, but this is murder moving towards Duncan. So he's using it almost like as a motivation to get there. It's really horrible. Okay, little shift in tone marked out by the caesura here. You'll notice that when you get this caesura or punctuation in the middle of the line, it normally shifts the tone somewhat. So now he's directly addressing the earth. Thou short and firm set earth, hear not my steps. So a little bit of personification there. So he doesn't want to be heard. He doesn't want the earth to reveal which way they walk, because he's worried that people will know what he's doing. As we get towards the end of the soliloquy, we of course have a rhyming couplet, which always sort of emphasizes the most important section or part. So he says, whilst I threat he lives, words to the heat of deeds to cold breath gives. So we've got some lovely juxtaposition in this section, you know, the heat of deeds to the cold breath. He's basically saying the more he talks about it or thinks about it, the more time Duncan is just alive. So he's encouraging himself to move quickly, to not let his resolve cool, and just essentially to get on with it. So there the soliloquy seems to end, and we're broken up with the stage directions of a bell ringing. And he sees this bell ringing as an invite. Okay, so he's like, again, this idea suggests, this personification, that everything around him wants him to commit this crime. He's sort of motivated by everything, rather than going, oh, a bell, that's telling me not to. He's going, oh, the bell wants me to do it. So it's really kind of pushing him to go forward with the plan. And then we've got this juxtaposition in the final rhyming couplet of the scene, where he says, hear it not, Duncan, it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell. The knell is a funeral bell, so it's very, very fitting that he's like, this is your last bell, this is your funeral bell. And then we've got this juxtaposition about whether or not he'll go to heaven or to hell. Well, based on what he said in his soliloquy in Act 1, Scene 7, it's very clear that Duncan will be going to heaven. So why does he say it? Perhaps because he is aware that that's exactly where he will be heading. He will be heading to hell, whereas Duncan will clearly be heading to heaven. Okay, final thoughts, as always. We have got death. Big E, because he's literally going off to kill him. Friendship and betrayal, because you've got that kind of that friendship that is presented between him and Banquo that is starting to falter, and the betrayal of Duncan and obviously his actions. It's also foreshadowing the future betrayal of Banquo. Big theme, good versus evil. Here he is about to commit the worst type of atrocity possible, regicide. And you've got this idea of the supernatural, not just because of the hallucination of the dagger, but all of the imagery that he invokes to help him go and sort of carry out this evil plan. So we really leave this scene in Act 2, Scene 1 in the darkest possible place. Obviously, Act 2, Scene 2 is coming next, so do just carry on watching or have a little look at the playlist. If you're enjoying these videos and find them helpful, please do subscribe to my channel and keep your eye out for all the new videos coming your way. If there's anything that you would like me to cover or you have any questions about the scene, please just drop me a note in the comments. Thank you so much for watching and happy revising.